Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mai Flor, Executive Director of WaterLinks. Welcome to the first of a 5-series webinar on digital transformation for water and sanitation utilities. Given the limitations on travel and face-to-face seminars, we needed to innovate and bring knowledge to you despite these trying times. And for those of you who are not terribly familiar with the Zoom platform, let me just explain briefly. Okay, so if you need to ask a question, there's a Q&A box, and there's also a chat box for those who want to give us some concerns on the logistics front. So if there's an issue with audio or the video, please send us a message on the chat box. There will also be Q&A sessions at the end of each presentation, so please key in your Q&A, your questions in the Q&A box marked in green. I want to remind you that there are 4 other seminars in this series of 5, and just to remind you of the dates. So please mark your calendars on those dates. It will be every other Wednesday at about the same time as we have today, which is 2 p.m. Manila Philippine time or Singapore time. Today's webinar is meant to be an introductory session on the topic of digital transformation, what it means exactly, the various applications of technology on utility operations, and of course, costs and benefits. We have 2 speakers for this webinar who will be properly introduced. A summary of the session will also be made at the end of the session, so do stay till the end. We will be conducting polling throughout the webinar, and we encourage you to participate, for this will help us improve the quality of our webinars in future. Let me start with the first poll so we know exactly who are in the room. There are 5 questions, so please scroll down to complete the questionnaire before you click submit. So please appreciate your answering the poll now. Okay, we have very few who are answering. There are 75 of us so far, so please respond. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I think that will do for now. All right, so there's a question on, we have, more or less 76 people on the call, 55 of whom have answered the poll. We have majority male, more or less ages between 30 and 60, mostly from the private operators. Interesting. Okay, all right. So let me start now with the first speaker. Let me start with the first speaker. Can we stop sharing, Jess? Please stop sharing the results. Okay, our first speaker is Dr. Amit Chanan, the Director of Projects and Property for the City of Sydney. Amit has over 20 years of experience in the water industry and infrastructure services. He was also the Chief Operating Officer of the New South Wales State Water Corporation and represented the state on the River Murray Water Committee that manages the Murray-Darling Basin. He is currently an adjunct professor at the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Technology, Sydney, a member of the Strategic Council of the IWA, and a member, of course, of the WaterLinks Board of Trustees. So Amit, please start your presentation.
Thank you, Mai. I'll start with sharing my screen.
Okay, let me stop mine, please.
Okay. So thank you, Mai, for the introduction, and welcome everybody for this webinar on digital transformation, the series of 5 webinars. And I guess there is no better way of talking about digital transformation than to get connected with each other digitally, regardless of where we are sitting in the world at the moment. So it is a very apt way of talking about digital transformation. You may or may not have seen some of these memes about digital transformation that are floating in the social media at the moment. There's a lot of talk about what COVID has done to the concept of digital transformation. There is, no doubts that today there is a large portion of workforce across the world, relying on digital medium to be doing teleworking. If I look at Australia itself, there is a third of our workforce, nearly 32% people, almost overnight, who would have normally worked out of office, started doing remote working from home as a result of COVID-19. In this sort of transition period around my home, if I reflect, I probably spoke to my CIO a lot more about my business than I did, a couple of years preceding that. And probably be fair to say that the CIOs now understand the breadth of their business needs a lot better than they probably did before COVID hit the world. There's a study from Argentina that I was reading recently. There's 250 of their large firms in Argentina. 93% of them have adopted teleworking. While working from home is not digital transformation or the type of transformation that we are keen to hear about in context of a water utility, it is still important to acknowledge, though, that we are in the midst of once in a lifetime shift in the way we work, and this digital change that is happening right now is actually make us all think about how we do work. And if you just think about this gathering in this webinar, we've got people hosting it from Manila, speaking from Australia. There are participants across Asia. This is digital change that's already afoot. So I think that therefore it is really the opportune time to be talking about digital transformation, because we are being digitally transformed like never before, and it's happening right now, and it's happening across the globe. The term digital transformation is very popular, and you hear about it everywhere, you read about it everywhere, and there is different perspectives that people have about what digital transformation means. And in my journey across sort of working with different local councils or water utilities, anything from implementation of a SAP system to a few sensors or a new SCADA, there are generally claims that the business is transforming digitally. And they're not all wrong, because there are elements of technology that are critical part of digital transformation journey. But before we go down the path of getting our business ready for digital transformation, I think it is important that we, as leadership group, particularly noting that quite a few of you are from sort of middle management and senior management, you need to understand what that digital transformation journey is all about. And we need to understand what digital transformation entails and what we need to get out of this. And the next couple of slides, I'll try to share with you what all the reading I've been doing in the recent times, and I'll try to synthesize what the literature is saying about what digital transformation is. So Harvard Business Review has sort of run a few series of articles around digital transformation, not surprisingly. And sometimes when you are exploring a concept that is really all-encompassing, it is probably easier to describe it in a way that what it isn't, rather than describing what it is. And I think that's the approach Harvard Business Review, the series, actually took towards digital transformation. And they focused on highlighting what are some of the challenges if you have a too technocratic view about transformation, and if you have a technology focus mindset that you want to buy a system thinking that'll digitally transform your business. All these articles and the literature actually warns us, not just the Harvard Business Review, but even broader literature on the topic warns us that rushing into technical solutions and expecting them to digitally transform your business is that's not how it's going to work. And I'm sure there are plenty of technology providers who would try to sell us a dream, the plug and play kind of dream about digital transformation. And I don't think that all the technology providers are evil, so don't think in that sense. What I'm saying is that before we start to talk to our technology providers, it is really critically important that we understand what what our needs actually are, and what journey, why is it that we want to take our business down the digital transformation path. And before you even contemplate technological solutions, you need to think about the talent and culture, as there is enough case study literature that's showing what happens if you don't do that. Um, I have a 12-year-old son, and for the last 5 years, I have been more or less incapable of punishing him for any mistakes he makes. And the reason for that is when he was about 7, he learned a concept in school called growth mindset. The growth mindset, as he tells me, is always learning. And when he makes a mistake, he says, "Mistakes are learning opportunity, Dad." It's about he needs time to learn. So he's got this mindset which leaves me at a state where anytime he makes a mistake, I also accept that as a learning opportunity. So that's a kind of mindset that I know is going somewhere, and whether I like it or not, he's taking me with him. And that is a kind of mindset that is needed in a business that wants to go down the digital transformation path. And one of the best definitions I've come across about digital mindset is by a group called Knowlescape, and they describe it as a marriage of technology and people. If you think about it, bringing technology, which is an important piece of this journey, but just as critical, just as important is capable workforce. The right culture in the organization, people who understand the business and use digital technology to foresee possibilities and deliver on those. Extracting value and improving service provision is what digital transformation is about. So it's a lot more than technology, as I said. So when you think about the digital mindset, some of the challenges or some of the attributes that we need to have in place are, as evident on this slide, are about getting out of your comfort zone and getting into that learning zone. One of the most frightening part of digital transformation, perhaps, is its relentless rise in the expectation on the consumer. There was a time when there would be a leaking pipe on the street, and there would be some water on the street, and you might get a phone call to your customer service, and it'll go into some sort of a system, and it'll get allocated to your maintenance workforce, and a couple of weeks later, somebody would turn up to look at that um, the leak. What happens now in today's digital savvy world? A passerby takes a picture of it and puts it on the Twitter. And before you know it, the minister's office is on the phone, and they are chasing something, and they would be chasing you till you have someone attending to it. And within a matter of sort of minutes, because they don't want more people responding to that tweet in a negative way. So your response time as a result has to be a lot more efficient. So the tool in the hands of customers like mobile phones have made customer demand and expectations quite high, and to respond to them, the utility needs to be digitally savvy and needs to be ready to that sort of request from the community. So to get the right digital mindset, it is a mindset that takes you out of your comfort zone. As I said, it is a mindset that is data driven, is all about data driven conversations, but at the same time, it also is about relying on that tacit knowledge, because to turn data into information, to turn data into useful mine of information opportunities, you do still need the experience and judgment. So by no means digital transformation is a Trojan horse to get rid of your older workforce. It is in fact a way of capturing and codifying some of their tacit knowledge that you can use for the future as well. And leadership would play a vital role. Technology is important, but the success and failure of digital transformation relies on how the leaders go about it in terms of the workforce, in terms of the culture, the digital mindset. And the most important transition that digital transformation entails is about the old must be sustained to keep the business going, and the new must be built simultaneously, and must be shielded and to allow for an eventual takeover. And it is an ongoing sort of disruption that needs to take place that is vital for businesses' sustainability. So leaders have that critical role to play in bridging that old and new, and that's something that is easier said than done. It's something that will take all your management skills and all your human emotional intelligence to make that leap in a successful manner. Reality is most of us in water utilities in particular are technocrats, and so we need to have those softer skills to go with it. Um, and being technocrats, I guess another point I should make is it makes us really good with the skepticism that we bring, challenging everything. But digital transformation also requires us to have an open mindset, which is an integral part of the digital mindset. So that's, in a nutshell, if you don't have that right mindset, right culture, and leadership, the journey to digital transformation is bound to fail, and that is really important to have that in place first before we rush to any technical solutions. This is one of the sort of better publications if you're interested in digital transformation in water utilities. It's a joint publication by Xylem and the International Water Association on the journey that utilities around the world are taking on digitally transforming, and they relied on interviewing a lot of utility leaders from across the world, and lessons from them in terms of how they're going about it, what are their challenges. The source, the name of the document is in the bottom of the screen. If you're interested, you should download. But this picture actually sort of gives you a summary of a transition that takes place between Sort of towards the left are the utilities who haven't yet started on their transformation journey, relying still on the sort of legacy analog infrastructure with no digital strategies in place. And as you move to the right of the screen, the journey moves from basic to opportunistic, and ultimate goal being a transformational utility. And those utility members who are online today, they could probably self-assess looking at this spectrum to see where they currently sit. Most IWA members are probably in the basic to opportunistic sort of category, where there has been some start in terms of digital transformation, whether investment in SCADA or some online monitoring. And there are some others who have put in place some analytical tools and process optimization tools. But fair to say that there is none that this study at least found who could be classified to be at that transformational end, which is the nirvana of this journey, where the truly transformational utilities with digital mindset across the workplace, across the workforce, advanced analytics and behind every decision making, digital technologies incorporated across the entire business. That's still a fair bit off, even for some of the the leading utilities in the water sector. But having that journey, having that roadmap, is really important to make sure that A, you understand where you currently sit, B, you know where your desired place is, and then you can have in place a plan to get there. Once again, having that digital mindset must always be your first step, rather than running to pick solutions and learning to pick technologies. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, this slide, some work by Deloitte, looked at a number of utilities, and um, again, it also highlights the risk of if utilities go into that sort of digital journey without having a clear culture, mindset, and roadmap. And they've very aptly described that, if you look at the screen, don't get stuck here. That is the Bermudan Triangle that Deloitte describes as the endless loop of doing digital things. They say that it's clearly not digital transformation, but business are spending money to buy things and buy products and do same old, and it's not how you move forward on that loop. You need to, the only way to leverage digital technologies is to have a clear business model and clear pathway, along with the the right digital mindset. So the warning again is to not get caught in that endless digital loop, and think about the entire journey and plan it adequately. So let's look at some examples from around the world, and see some of the possibilities of what can be achieved. And one of my favorite ones is this Smart Water for Europe project in Thames Water, that actually had looked at some of the opportunities that smart or digital transformation can provide, including opportunities for reducing energy use, leakage reduction, and improving customer service. So I'm going to play a video, and hopefully it works.
Sorry, Amit. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can't hear any sound on this video.
Uh, Can you hear that now? No.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. So it's a trial in Wales, in Reading in England, that looked at smart sensors for leakage reduction and for utilities energy consumption, as well as improving customer service. Um, it would have been better if the sound had worked. I'm not sure how. What I might do is, there is a link available on the on my slide pack, and I think if in the interest of time, it might be best if I just leave this slide and just encourage you to have a look at the video that's available. It essentially talks about the opportunities that investment in digital could provide. And I'll move on to the
So,
next. Sorry.
okay, Amit, and we'll send to all participants the link to the video if you provide it to
Sure.
us.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's fine. Um, so I'll move on to the next one, which is I am by background a dam operator, so I always get excited when I look at dams in anger. This is a dam in Taiwan, and Taiwan is a country where they get a lot of summer typhoons, and most of their dams are multi-purpose dams. So they are required to empty these dams before the typhoon season comes, so that they can protect the downstream communities by storing floodwaters. The challenge for any dam operator, if there is any online, is always that if you release too much water before the rainy season comes, you are accused of wasting the resource, because if you can't fill it back in the rain, you wasted the resource. But if you not release enough and the floods come and you cause damage downstream, then you're accused of failing the downstream community. What Taiwan has done through investment on sort of digital transformation of their operations is, they've invested in real life river gauging and weather forecasting, and have developed these reservoir operating models based on artificial neural network modeling, that allows them to sort of manage these reservoirs in a way that they optimize the use of the reservoirs for water supply as well as for flood mitigation. And it's quite a good case study to look at for any of you who are interested in dam operations. Another one here is a project that I was involved with, and it's an example of, I guess, in a way, digital mindset and not enough money. So many years ago, I was responsible for the drainage areas. I think in nearly 100 kilometers of pipeline, and probably used to have about $20,000 in budget for doing CCTV camera surveys of the pipes. So the general acceptance was we will only use the CCTV when there's a complaint about some pipe failure or sewer smells or something. So this allowed us to work with the research partners to develop low-cost models using tacit knowledge of our experienced staff, and develop these pipe failure prediction models using fuzzy logic. And these allowed us to use the limited amount of money in a more proactive manner, rather than just doing a reactive CCTV surveys. And I know that now, I mean, there is a link available if you want to read more about this model, but now there are off-the-shelf products available that do your pipe failure predictions, and that they allow you to sort of achieve similar outcomes. Um, this is, towards a sort of low end of cost scale. There are some cheaper ways to get onto that digital journey as well. And if you're focusing on customer experience, and there are P2B sort of service providers who can assist you with online billing, and that these are probably one of the sort of easier ways to go on that path of getting customers some flexibility, but at the same time getting transparent billing and getting your reconciliation done well, and improving your cash flow. So there are a lot of studies out there who where utilities have done it and quite successfully benefited from it. And when you think about the customer's digital readiness, this graph up there shows that the customers are already using online digital payments across the world. You know, there's a really high number of adults in Kenya, like something like 80% of adults in Kenya are already doing digital payments. So that transition is not that hard for customers should the utility decide to go down that path, and it reduces your costs as well. Um, every time I have one of the vendors come to talk to me about their U-Butte projects, I pay I start paying attention once they start talking to me about how much it's going to cost us. Because there's no point talking, dreaming about Tesla if I know that I can't afford it. So, and that's my attitude towards investment in digital transformation as well. And I think it's important to think about, um, and I know that nearly 62% of you are interested in the topic of what are the cost benefits of investing in digital transformation. So if you think about investing in digital transformation, some of the work done by the Global Water Intelligence Group suggests that uh, in terms of return on investment, the digital transformation is more than capable to pay for itself in terms of over a decent sort of return period. These are some of the percentages of return on investment. If you look at the automated meter reading, something like 32% return on investment. If you look at the investment in SCADA, something like 34%. So there is really high return on investment that you can achieve by investing in these initiatives. So if you look at the literature, cities like City of Kansas has changed its entire metering fleet based on the savings from streamlined reduction in trips by the meter readers. Similarly, in Lincoln, Nebraska, they when they changed their meters to smart meters, they were able to reduce the meter readers workforce from 6 meter readers to just one person driving in a van, and the van could collect data as you drive up and down the street for 80,000 meters. So there are benefits that come by investment in these um, infrastructure. City of Sacramento is another example in the United States where they gave access to their online portal to residents over an 18-month trial, and that resulted in reduction in leakage by 50% and an improved response time to leakage or pipe failures by 34%. In my neck of woods in Australia, there's an example in Queensland, Mackay Regional Council. They deployed a Taggle system, which is a sensors and sort of leakage detection and demand management system, and that allowed them to reduce their demand such that they were able to defer $100 million worth of capital investment and delayed their water treatment plant by 10 years. So there are, so if you think about the whole of business perspective, there are enough evidence to suggest that investment in these initiatives can provide decent return on investment. So the business case in that sense is reasonably easy to make. I've got two
Amit,
further examples.
please wrap up. Thank you. But please continue, but just let you know time. Thanks.
Last two slides, Mike. Thank you. So these are two cities in Korea, Seosan and Paju, where they went and did some smart water system trials. Seosan they picked up a district meter area of about 2,000 connections, and there are costs up there, and how they were able to save something like 190,000 cubic meters of water per year in terms of leakage reduction. Similarly, with Paju, for investment of $6.7 million, they not only able to improve their leakage by 13.3%, they were also able to instill confidence in the community on the water that they're getting from their taps, and as a result, that confidence level increased 36.3%, and which is a significant number because culturally, the city and the residents were not really keen to drink tap water. So there are not just financial benefits, but even non-financial benefits that also come from this investment. And this is, I'll just skip this slide and go to my last slide. So there's some take-home message. I think I said that in the opening, that in terms of transformation journey, um, most of our utilities and not just in Asia, but in Australia, across the world, are led by leaders who are not digital natives. And it is really important and critical that we understand, we build the capacity of the leaders first to be able to take these utilities on that journey. With my, at University of Technology, we are actually currently looking at finalizing a short course targeted only for senior executives to sharpen their systems thinking and that digital mindset, because we've acknowledged that it is really critical for us to have a workforce that can actually drive the digital transformation successfully. In terms of building sort of innovation culture, I've already covered these points. We need to encourage data-driven conversations, because data is the new oil. And promote where possible pilot projects, because that gives confidence, and because if you don't have enough financial capacity to have a whole of organization big transformation, you can start with pilot projects, but having those pilot projects defined in a big roadmap, so you go on a journey and keep implementing small projects, eventually forming part of a overall transformational journey. And finally, it does provide a real opportunity. I generally believe that if we can get our workforce ready, the digital transformation does provide an opportunity to not only service the cities of the future, it also provides opportunity for utilities to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Amit. A lot of information there, and apologies for cutting you short, especially
Okay.
when you were really talking about the meat of it on the cost benefits and providing very specific examples to showcase. So, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for questions. And there are no open questions at the moment, so please type in on the Q&A box any questions you may have for Amit. All the presentations will be on our website. The session itself will also be on YouTube, can be accessed. We'll send you the link to that. We have our first question from Delph Mac. How do you calculate the ROI of digital transformation initiatives? Amit.
It's like I said, in terms of it depends on where you are investing your digital what your digital initiative is. For example, there's a lot of literature around the smart meters, and there is literature around what the current operation costs are, whether in terms of workforce, in terms of operational efficiency, in terms of the capital costs. So the work by Global Water Intelligence actually captures quite a bit of that in terms of how much you need to invest to change a metering fleet and what benefits it derives. So primarily they come from operational savings. Primarily they come from reduction in workforce. Primarily they come from reduction in operating costs. That's the bulk of it. But it also comes with improved customer service, with and the leakage reduction, that the other benefits that follow. They also have monetary value that gets added to it. Hope that kind of answers your question.
Thank you. For those of you who can't see the questions, there's a box, a Q&A box on the lower portion of the screen. You may see the questions there. A question from Dorai Narayana. Do you foresee that the regulator has a role in driving digital transformation, or is it primarily driven internally?
That's a good question. In terms of the regulators, they certainly, and I can speak of the regulators that I'm familiar with in Australia. They certainly have obligations for our utilities with regards to, say, leakage reduction. They have obligations with regards to customer service KPIs as well. So some of those digital transformation initiatives result in, and they're proven to be quite effective in reducing non-revenue water. And so in that sense, regulators do play a role in encouraging investment by utilities. Similarly, for smart meters, it's also, again, reduction of non-revenue water driven by regulators, but implemented by the utilities in response to the regulation. So they do certainly have a role to play in encouraging that investment.
Correct. Another question, what smart cities are there? What smart technologies are there? I suppose the question is smart technologies is there in Sydney, and what kind of digital mindset was implemented?
So digital mindset definitely is a journey. I think there's more realization on every organization that's gone on that journey, and I think one of the biggest thing that's happening in Sydney through WASA and the Australian Water Association is the sharing of knowledge. That is really critical, and the more the water operators get together and talk about the lessons they've learned and the opportunities that they followed and what they got out of it, that then helps the broader knowledge of that digital mindset in terms of understanding what worked, what didn't work, how do we bridge that old and new gap. And that is how we are identifying that the leadership needs to be trained further. So with UTS, and there is definitely a work happening in terms of short courses for senior leadership. The sensors, or in terms of technology, there is just about everything is available in Sydney in terms of smart meters. There are smart meters across Murrumbidgee. So Murrumbidgee River catchment, which was the whole of basin automation that was done as part of federal government initiative, which had turned dam and river operations and bulk meters into a very I think the project was called the Computer-Aided River Management System, and the CALM project is effectively digitalization of the entire basin's operations. So that's a great example of what digitalization can do in terms of improving efficiency and saving water or reducing non-revenue water.
Thank you, Amit. We still have a few questions out, but we're running out of time. So kindly respond directly on the chat box to the questions for you. If you can, and if you can now, that would be great. At this point, I'd like to call on our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Mudassar Iqbal. He's the Director of Client Solutions and Global Software Strategy at Xylem. Mudassar co-founded Vicenti, which leads the development of smart water platforms and its adoption in several water utilities. He has led the implementation of several smart water projects, among which is a smart water grid project for PUB Singapore, covering a pipe burst alert system, identification of assets at risk, zonal demand and analytics, online hydraulic modeling, automated meter analytics, and the integration of smart meters for bulk customers for demand analytics. He's also led another project, this time in South Australia Water, for South Australia Water, which was an end-to-end smart water analytics platform, and also a comprehensive smart water network project for Sharjah's Electricity and Water Authority, covering 13 zones of the city. So let me call on Mudassar, please.
Thanks, Mike. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks everybody for joining the session and on this series of webinars. I will have a different spin on this on the digital transformation, and you will hear a lot of messages that Amit had mentioned in his session as well, but from a different angle. So you might find me copying some of his messages, so excuse me. So let's keep that image that you saw just now of a pipe bursting in the middle of a busy street. And think for a moment, what's the state of the water system? Cape Town, we know, hit the day zero, where residents had to queue up in thousands at 200 different points in the city to collect water. But this situation is not unique just with Cape Town. All over the world, we know the water demands in agriculture, industry, and residential fronts and commercial fronts are all increasing exponentially, from Los Angeles to Chile, in South America, in Europe, from London, Istanbul, all the way to Victoria in Australia. The water stress is not eliminating, is not going down. Amongst this, the challenge is the utilities have a mix. Utilities are faced with a challenge. First of all, their own organization. The organization is, as we know, split in different departments. They have their own objectives. They make their own decisions, revolving around finance, customer service, procurement, leak detection, managing lots of different assets in the network, from sensors to pumps to dams, aeration systems, and all of that. Having to manage customers' expectations from all different fronts: residential, agricultural, commercial, and all that. And on top of that, the utilities have taken some steps. They have moved a bit into bringing in some digital transformation, some form of digital transformation. They have some systems: SCADA systems, hydraulic modeling systems, meter data management, billing systems, maintenance, works orders, and all that. But all of this is siloed. So we need transformation. But the fact is, transformation is happening. Another city, Durban in South Africa, avoided that fate by digital transformation in how they manage their water sources through hydrologic models paired with the monitoring devices to optimize the storage levels. Las Vegas Valley District in the US, harnessing digital technology to improve water losses. Whereas in Shenzhen in China, using digital technology and sensing technologies to improve the surface water quality. So this is happening all around us. So this is not, which is an option anymore. If some of us, this is what Amit also said earlier in his session, that digital transformation is here. It's a must. Whether we want to go with it, we want to embrace it or not, it is not an option anymore. So what is a digital transformation? There are many different definitions where we can summarize it as being able to deliver the right information to the right people at the right time. That's what I could find the most concise way of saying that this is what the digital transformation will enable, is to bring situational awareness so that we can take informed decisions to improve the water stress situations that we face today. Many different names. Some people call digital water, some call smart water, Internet of Water, Water 4.0, many different names. But what is enabling all of this is not something that has come from the water space. And that's the beauty of it. Look at the transformation all around us. Look at what's happening in the transportation sector. Look at what's happening in the vaccine identification through employing AI. The sensing technologies have improved a lot. The GIS mapping of the network has improved a lot. Communication, low power communication through NB-IoT is being adopted all over the place. All of this being fed into what we call a digital twin that builds an accurate replica of what's happening in your network. So you can simulate, before you go and isolate a pipe, you can simulate what will happen if you did. so that you can avoid unintended consequences. And all of that being delivered in a very secure manner through some of the world-class cloud systems. And even if you don't like cloud for cybersecurity concerns, all of this can be installed on your own premises with highly powered computing and massive storage systems. And artificial intelligence and machine learning, learning how your network evolves and what it may do in future to provide you predictions of how to operate it today. So this is enabling. So we have the enabling technologies all over around us that are being utilized by a lot of utilities around the world. Where it can help, look at the entire water cycle, from the water, monitoring the water quality at the sources to at the treatment side, predicting and informing of the dosing and demand forecasting, to in your distribution system, helping to manage the pumping cost, the energy, reducing the energy that you spend on pumping, monitoring for leakage and non-revenue water, understanding the customer consumption cycles through smart metering, going all the way into your the drainage network to be able to predict the overflows and even avoid those overflows in case of both wet and rainy situations. So the entire water cycle, when we put this in a framework of sense, predict, act, this is the framework that can be adopted and is being adopted by utilities around the world to bring in digital transformation in what they do and improve the cycle from end to end. What are the benefits? What do you get? In the words of the CEO of Taipei Water, who said that as a result of the digital transformation and some of the technologies they adopted, the city has not experienced a water shortage in 17 years. That speaks a lot. That you're talking about through this improving on community benefits. You can predict the rates. You can improve the customer engagement and experience, bringing in environmental protection through reducing the risk of sewage overflows, for example. Improving your operational costs, improving your operational excellence through being able to predict what might happen and reducing the emergency callouts. So you're not scrambling middle of the night to a situation in the city. You're not only improving on the cost reductions through operational optimization, but also you will be improving your revenue through smart metering, as well as improving your capital efficiency through deferring capital expenditures, because now you know the targeted areas in your network that need replacement or not. And through all of this, you become a world-class brand that your customers love, that your workforce likes to come and work for, and you have sustainable future as your performance indicator as a world-class utility. That's the promise that the digital transformation brings to the table. Let's bring, we have some polls. Please participate in the poll so we know the state of the mindsets of the people in the community. The question is, using data to help improve what I do is a must, good to have, not essential, and overkill for what I do. Think about what you do today and see what you have heard so far, what you have been hearing all along. How does that relate to you? Okay, let's give it a few more seconds. Okay, good. So result is great. A must, I have 92% plus is saying is a must, which is great. Good to have, but not essential. We have 7%. So good. So this really goes down to what we feel, what as participants in this journey, what you feel about your role. The enabling technologies. Can we probably stop sharing? The result keeps coming up on the screen. Okay. So how are some of these utilities doing it? We spoke about the enabling technologies. What is the framework? How is all this architecture working out for some utilities? What you see on the screen is a very typical theme, which talks about, which separates the business functions in a utility from technologies. And this is what Amit was also talking earlier. Don't think technology, think about the business functions, think about the outputs. And the architecture here is a very generic architecture that says your sensing systems, if you don't sense, if you don't measure, you cannot manage it. And utilities have their own internal enterprise IT systems. The AI, the smart systems, and the communication network will connect all of this, do the crunching, and help to determine what is happening in the network and who in the business unit needs to know about what's happening. So on a certain day, an alarm from acoustic sensors may go to maintenance team. But on another day, the same alarm may be used to determine that it is customer consumption and may trigger an alarm to the customer demand team. So that's the power where you separate out the business functions from the technology and you harness the intelligence in a collective manner. Adelaide, South Australia is a key example where they started with a system where they put hundreds of sensors in the CBD. The message here is they looked at in a holistic manner that you're not just solving one problem, because digital technology's promise is you need to look at holistically. What are the different problems you can start to solve when you are looking at that central box of analytics? Like I said, the same sensors could be utilized to solve problems that are different divisions and departments are facing in your network. So they deployed hundreds of these sensors in the network, water quality, acoustics, the same architecture that I showed you. From one end, the data starts to coming in through different type of data connectivity mediums, through NB-IoT, through some specific comms and even 4G systems, goes through data storage systems. But the key point is the most right-hand part that you see, the action. What is coming out is action. So it is the actionable data that comes out of the system that helps the field operators do what they're supposed to do. And the outcome, they have been able to reduce the reactive works by almost 50%, have been able to save the breaks by almost 50%, catastrophic breaks. And the survey they did with the customers, the first time in a long time, they had a very, very positive feedback from the end consumers. So that there goes your customer satisfaction. Another utility in Southeast Asia, deploying thousands of sensors to monitor the health of the trunk mains network. Billions of data points coming in every day, and the analytics system is crunching all the data and helping utility understand where are the breaks and what parts of the system are under stress, thereby saving millions of liters of water for them in losses. Another utility employing an advanced system for understanding the metering inaccuracies is saving hundreds of thousands of dollars and improving the revenue through understanding the meter replacements and the maintenance regime. And thereby, they moving from random or age-based meter replacement to a targeted and focused capital investments. Another utility has saved hundreds of millions of dollars in capital expenditures through employing an advanced system that helps in avoiding sewer overflows in case of wet and dry situations. So lots of examples around the world. Let's see, looking at all of this, another poll, do you think you can, in your role, you can influence what you have heard so far to bring in your utility, what you do? In your role, do you have a say? Do you have a voice? Or do you think you don't have enough power to influence the change that we all need in the water sector? Okay, let's give it a few more seconds. So for 92%, 93%, I do have a voice, which is great. And about 10%, I don't think I matter. This is very important as we move on, and as we start to look at who are the stakeholders. The stakeholders in a water utility, in this digital transformation, are not only water utilities or consumers. The stakeholders in this scenario, utility is connected to the customers, and the customers are connected to the environment. And in this entire picture, you have telcos playing a role on the communication front. You have universities and startups playing a role of innovation. You have utility operators, obviously some of the big ones, and consumers are the big ones. System integrators, cloud providers, infrastructure providers, water associations. All of these need to come together to understand how to build a system that in a city where leadership starts to think about water being the essential part that connects all of these stakeholders together, and then start to see how to build a system, how to bring in the digital transformation that satisfies the needs of all the stakeholders and defines their roles very clearly. And in this journey, as the utility starts to reorganize itself, on the left side being a linear where you have departments, each department procuring and making their own decisions, to in a more of like a transitioning state where you have leadership taking the decisions on the digital transformation. And the utility is still taking the leading role on this digital transformation, because remember, the digital transformation is not just for the utility, it is for the entire water cycle that involves all the stakeholders, including the community and environment, to a dynamic and fluid situation that you see on the right side, where the utility becomes a catalyst that enables digital transformation and empowers all the stakeholders within, so to drive the change that we all want. And that is the dynamic and fluid utility, which the leadership needs to start to build, starts to take the leadership. And this is what Amit also mentioned earlier. That requires a holistic road mapping, thinking what is the end goal? What are you trying to build? What are the problems we are trying to solve in our specific area? Bring a culture of innovation within the utility. Each division, each department, each person starts to think out of the box. And this needs to come right from the top level, from the leadership. Leverage pilots, use the pilots to understand what will work, what will not work. The examples I showed you about South Australia Water and some of the other utilities, those are all pilots. Nobody knows what will work. Each utility situation is different, hence leverage pilots. Think in terms of data, how data can start to solve your problems, but at the same time, think collaboration. Collaborating with other utilities, what other utilities are doing, how have they adopted some of the technologies, what have been their learnings. Think to collaborate with industry partners who are at the forefront of bringing in technologies. Think of partnering and collaborating with universities who are at the forefront and to bring in innovation. So these 6 or 7 areas of focus for the leadership are the ones where we say that these are the things, if the leadership starts to focus, that will start to trickle down, have a trickle down effect within the entire organization, not just within the utility, but also in the entire ecosystem of the stakeholdership here. That the industry thinks inclusive, the end consumers will think they're also inclusive in this journey. The universities, associations, everybody thinks that they are inclusive in shaping this entire roadmap. We spoke about the ROI. And as you're making these changes, how do you decide? Like we said, start with pilots, leverage pilots. So you start with a pilot. You need to be investing in sensing. You need to be investing in communication, in bringing some of the cloud technologies and AI technologies. How do you scale? Which way do you go? Do you pick one problem to solve? Let's say non-revenue water. Do you pick one area in the network, or do you pick a large area in the network? There have been lots of studies on this, but the common theme coming out of that is either you scale geographically or you scale organization-wise. You go, okay, you pick one DMA, you start to look at, okay, what is we're going to employ digital technologies. We're going to transform this area to understand the losses, let's say, in this area. You understand, now what do? Do you scale geographically? If you do, what is your marginal additional investment? And does that justify just the organizational, just the geographical scaling? Because at that point in time, you would have invested so much a lot in your digital systems, that it would make a lot of sense to bring in other problems that could be solved through the same system that you have already in place. If you bring an AI system, the same system could help you to improve on pumping optimization, as that system is telling you, helping you on the demand predictions, as well as helping you understand the customer consumption profiles. So a common theme is look at this diagonal axis, where it is a balance between organizational scaling, you bring in other departments and stakeholders, and geographical scale. Take it step by step, but start with a pilot in an area and with a problem. The last poll question, and then we're gonna wrap up. I'm concerned that digital transformation may take my role, or may make my role redundant. That is another dimension when we talk about digital transformation and organizational changes and reorganizations. What do we think? What do you think? Whether your role will still be needed, or what might happen? All right. So predominantly, the poll is saying that I'm not concerned that digital transformation will take away my role, which is a very, very encouraging, very positive result. The fact is, an operator sitting in a control room looking at those SCADA alarms, and the research shows that you cannot manage more than 200 to 300 alarms in a certain day. If that is the screen that you want to keep looking every single day, all the red alarms, and yet you don't know what alarms to go for, what to prioritize, that is one role. Another role is you let the AI, you let the digital systems make that assessment for you. Be your assistant hydraulic expert. Do that for you. Whereas you take on some of the more demanding roles that the current systems are not capable of, or in even near future. Who had thought of a cybersecurity officer role in a water utility? Some of the utilities have recently hired, made this role, and they have hired. So the fact is, the new roles will come in. More interesting roles will come in. I remember one of my conversation with one of the leaders at a utility. I asked the question, why digital transformation? Why are you bringing all these interesting tools? His answer is something I will always remember. He said that we are investing in our future. We want the youngs of our community to feel excited to come and work for a water utility, where they will have all these interesting tools to work with. And their life will be easier. They're not just sitting in front of a screen and looking at the red rows coming every now and then. They will be doing a lot more. More and more roles are coming. More jobs will be created. So I don't think any one of us needs to be worried about. And I'm very happy to see the poll thinks the same way. So where do you start? The starting point is look internally. Start with an open dialogue internally within the organization. Start to think about what are the problems you want to solve. Like Amit said, look at the outcome. Identify the outcomes you want to achieve. Don't think about technology. Technology is there. Don't think about, oh, you will have thousands of sensors and you will have tons and tons of data. What you're going to do about that? You do not need to worry about that. Enabling technologies are there. Identify where you want to go. And in this journey, what will also come handy is a trusted partner. It is a complex journey, organizational realignment, understanding people's roles, prioritizing what problems to go for, understanding which way to scale horizontally, organization-wise. These are all the different questions that you will need to answer. And a trusted industry partner will help you in dissecting that problem, help you understand what are the technologies available, what you can do, what is available at different stages of your journey. So be like we said, partner with somebody in the industry, so you know where you're going and what is the end point and how you can get there. Thank you very much. That's all. That's the perspective I wanted to bring from my side.
Thank you, Mudassar. Very, very comprehensive presentation. We have a question for you from Perry. Successful digital transformation is achieved if the fundamentals of the business are in place: excellent public governance regulations, solid institutions, enabling framework, transparent cost recovery, and effective operators. Would you have examples other than from PUB Singapore? And maybe if there are in the developing world, that would be more appropriate examples for most of the people that are in the room today.
Right. Very good question. And I think when you talk about in the developing world, a lot of utilities are in a at very infancy. In when Amit presented that chart where you have on one end you have you're starting on one place, you're and like an amateur, and on the other side you are transformational. A lot of utilities in the developing world are looking at sensing, bringing in software, bringing in systems to help understand what is really going on. But at the same time, there are regulations being put in place. I have to say, from an institutional perspective, the coherence in the developing world is not there yet. I think a lot of us in the developing world are looking at some of the stricter regulations coming up in Europe, where utilities by regulation are being forced to deploy tens of thousands of instruments to be able to manage the losses. So, and again, the ROI question is also still very, very, very big question mark. And that's where all of us need to come and work together on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, PUB Singapore is a great example. The Malaysia, I mentioned the Arcelor War is another very good example where the internal digital transformation drive has helped, and also some regulations have helped the utility to invest in a large monitoring infrastructure. So those are the ones that spring to mind straight away. Australia has and New Zealand has few examples where the regulation is driving, like in Christchurch, for example, in New Zealand, the regulation is driving the utility to start thinking in a holistic manner, to not work with one vendor, but to bring in a consortia who can start to pull together solutions that help the utilities solve the problems. And all of these utilities on their journey are thinking of partnership. They're thinking of, okay, we're gonna start here now. Let's partner together with industry to see where we go. So you do have examples from Malaysia, Singapore, New Zealand, for some utilities who are on this journey well ahead.
There's another question from Harry. For an emerging water company, this would be very costly. So how do we stage digital transformation considering the cost implications?
Sorry, is this a question on the poll? No.
No, there is a question in the chat box. It says for an emerging water company, this would be very costly. Therefore, yep. Where should we begin?
How do you stage? Yeah. It's a very good question, and I think the starting point is always good to look at what is the problem that is costing you the most. That is the biggest pain point. Start putting together the problem set. And again, the utility has to manage its cash flows. Utility has to look at how do you improve the cash flows and how do you keep maintaining the supply and demand situation. So start there. This is what a lot of utilities are doing. Engage with a partner to understand whether that problem alone is investable enough. That problem alone is the one that requires investment and how much, or it is worth bringing in some of the other problems in that ecosystem so that you can drive what we call the maximum benefit of the investment, maximum return on your investment. So start with one or two top problems that you're facing and look at what's available out there try in an area, pick an area, pick a plant that you want to try. Don't go full out before understanding how that technology will be adopted internally. That is one of the biggest lessons that we have learned along the way, that utilities who go on in a transformation, in a digital transformation, if they do not invest enough internally as well to organize and operationalize their digital technology, it does not go very far. The operators, the field crew, the plant operators, they continue to do what they do. The new system sits on one screen separately, and they can never get their head, how does this help me do better what I do every day? So these are the two major areas. Pick one simple problem and run it to the end, so you have a transformation internally to solve that problem. That could be as simple as a very, very cheap way to solve a problem, but you need to be confident that the digital transformation can be adopted internally as well. So these two elements need to be sorted.
Got it. Another question for you, is there a definition of a digital water system?
No, I think like we said, it is digital water 4.0. But the theme that I have started to like is if you can deliver the right information to the right person at the right time, that to me is a digital water. Your sensing will be required to deliver the information quickly. You will need softer and better number crunching systems to be able to process that data fast. And the bottom line is you are actually delivering actionable insights. You are not delivering data. The moment you start thinking about data, that is a wrong direction. In Australia, they have these big boards that say wrong way, go back. So I will say, if you start thinking about data, sensing data, wrong way, go back. Think about actions. What actions is the technology giving you the actionable information? You are on a digital transformation. So that to me is the definition.
Thank you, Mudassar. Okay, any more questions? I don't see any open questions. If not, then we shall proceed to our final poll. Thank you, Mudassar, and thank you, Amit, for such excellent presentations today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please participate in this poll so we know whether you're able to succeed in our intent for today's session. But don't go away. After the poll, we still have Arjun. Arjun Thapan is the chairman of WaterLinks, and he will be delivering a short summary of today's session as well as closing remarks. So let's see, more or less, yes, more or less matched and exceeded. Thank you. Thank you very much. Arjun, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mai. I think it would be extremely cheeky of me to try and summarize the very rich and knowledge-intensive presentations by Amit and Mudassar. I'm very grateful to them for their insights into the world of digital technology and how it can be leveraged to improve the effectiveness of our water utilities. Urban water utilities, as I think all of us know, across developing Asia, are constrained by a whole range of issues. And these include famously non-revenue water, intermittent water supplies, water quality, asset management, metering, billing, collection, customer relations. These are some of the more obvious ones and the ones that most utility managers are challenged with. And of course, it doesn't need to be gainsaid, but this is made much worse by the impacts of climate change, with which we are all fairly familiar. Today's digital technologies can apply to all of these areas, as has been discussed very eloquently by both Amit and Mudassar. The range, scale, and quality of data capture is is phenomenal. And when that is coupled with the depth of analysis that the technologies allow us, we get very high efficiencies that clearly outweigh costs. And that makes for very high levels of effectiveness on the part of water utilities. Certainly, not all of the constraints that I have referred to can be addressed simultaneously. There are obvious issues of finance and staff skills and capacities. But what is key, as both speakers have emphasized, is leadership. Smart leadership, I maintain, will grab the opportunities that digital technologies present to change the way that its water utilities provide a very critical social and economic service. And I think, frankly, Amit and Mudassar have given us enough reasons today to get onto the digital bandwagon. I'd like to thank all of you for listening in and asking questions. I would, of course, especially like to thank Amit and Mudassar for their time and for the quality and depth of their presentations. Please do join us at the next 4 webinars that will explore this subject in more detail, one of which we hope will also be looking at digital opportunities in sanitation management. And by the way, this session will be posted on YouTube, Facebook, as well as our WaterLinks website. And the 2 presentations specifically will also be available on our website. Thanks very much and have a very pleasant rest of the day. Goodbye.